Hello, this is Noah, and this is Joe. Say hello, Joe.
Hey Joe, welcome to the BO show.
I hate that so much. This is the best overall show. Um, Man, it's been a little bit of a wild week for me. How are you doing, Joe?
Good, good. I've been working my butt off and just took a little family vacation down to Chicago.
How'd that
Uh,
go?
Went pretty good. The kids were pretty awful on the way home, but that's usually par for the course on the return trip from anywhere. So
Yeah,
yeah,
you're all at that point. Everyone's all worn out, and
yes, and they're very crabby and cranky, and they fight over the tablet and when we're gonna stop next and who looked at who first, and yeah, good
oh, I
times.
know. I have three. I understand. Got to play any 40K recently?
Yeah, I got some good practice games in with Drew Carey, and I'm pretty impressed with them. So I'll talk about that in a
So they're
second.
they're doing all right. Yeah.
Yeah, the
Um,
new detachment is, man, that is so good, so good.
oh, I'm so happy because they needed some love.
Yeah, what do you got going on?
Well, I have been very busy getting ready for Cascade Clash, which, I mean, I've talked about it on the show. I kind of thought that, like, I was kind of worried for a little bit around attendance. And now, we set the cap at 150, thinking, like, there's no way that we're going to get 150, but it's a nice aspirational goal. And now we're at like 108, and it's suddenly like a little scary.
That's that's really impressive for like a brand new tournament just popping up out of the blue.
I entirely blame it on the fact that I have it, that my team is mostly comprised of wonderful people, and that we have always tried to reinvest in the community in general. And it just so happens like this time we're like, hey, y'all, you say you like us, we're running an event. And it turned out everybody, what? There's that, like, those sayings about, like, everyone's around until you call them asking for something, and then suddenly no one's picking up the phone. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is the exact fucking opposite.
Oh well, that's incredible.
Yeah, it's man, the community is the coolest thing about 40K. I've made a bunch of friends, and this thing that we're doing here wouldn't be successful if it wasn't for it. So I'm very humbled. I'm a little nervous. There's other events going on there that aren't 40K, like some magic events and stuff, and those are had their own trials and tribulations.
Okay.
So uh, we're just kind of like riding the rocket ship at this point, hoping everything works out. Doing our best.
Were you able to find like TOs for the other game
Yeah. I
easily?
mean,
Or?
so far, not easily. Luckily, there's a guy in our community who like literally like built a business on running competitive commander events.
Okay.
Um, and he jumped in to help when he saw that because I jumped in to take over after our other people weren't available. And I've never really done I've never ran a magic event. I've played in plenty of them, but I've never ran one. And he jumped in and his name's Nicholas Hammond, and he has been literally like a gift from God.
Oh, all right. Big Nick
Yeah,
crushing it
he's
over there.
been. Uh, oh yeah, dude. Yeah, he's crushing it. He's definitely a hero. Um, yeah, that's basically what I got going on. I've been. Oh, I signed up for an event for because I had a wait list, and I was pretty sure I wasn't going to get in on it. And it turns out I got in on it. So
Oh, is
I
this the
needed
one
to
Cass
like.
was trying to get in as well?
Yeah, he got in too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Uh, yeah. So last minute yesterday, I found out, or maybe it was the day before, I found out that I um, got in on this event, and I like I was like, okay, well, I just submitted a list. I'm like, okay, I think this will work. And I had been messing around with my Lancer list, but I forgot to consider the fact that I hadn't actually built or painted my Lancer at all.
Okay.
So I submitted my list, and then like after I submitted the list, I was like, oh. It turns out the rest of my list was painted and all ready to go. So
Don't
I'm
you
currently
have one
working.
already?
I've owned one. I have painted an Atropus and a Castigator that are both Cerastus
Okay.
Knights.
Okay. Oh,
They're
all right.
It's the
Gotcha.
big long-legged guys.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's the same I've painted the same chassis 2 other times.
Is that the
But
one that's stabbing the Nurgle demon?
yeah, he's shooting a machine gun into the Nurgle demon's chest.
Okay. Nice.
That's the Castigator, and then the Atropus has a magnet mounted on the end of its gravity gun, and it's actively like sucking like a Hormigaunt up into it. And I have a magnet on the back of the Hormigaunt that's the that and a piece of string, so it doesn't quite get to the thing, but there's enough magnetic force that it's actually floating.
Nice. That's awesome.
And
Sounds like
the
the
Tropus is also the
Imperium's.
one I've done.
Oh,
Yeah, but
what
I'm
are you?
playing them as Chaos Knights.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
So I'm
not
testing the
happy
Chaos
with
Knights Lancer.
Imperial Knights. Post
No,
status like.
they're currently really bad.
Oof.
Yeah, and so people were like, "Oh, they buffed us." No, they didn't. I'm gonna make sure I go on record. I'm gonna segue for a second. I'm just
We're
gonna go
putting
on
it on
record and say,
record.
okay, Imperial Knights are not an efficiency army; they're a capability army. And what I mean by that is, some armies, the way you play them is by maximizing your efficiency. So, Space Marines are that way. Drakari are that way. Most MSU infantry armies are that way because MSU infantry armies usually have somebody with a pistol so they can do actions in combat, somebody with assault weapons so they can advance and do actions, some ability to additional movement, the ability to go through breachable walls, and usually things like deep strike and a bunch of other things. They usually have a variety of capabilities. So at that point, you have all the ability to do stuff. Now you need to have efficient damage dealing and all these other things. Knights, the thing they have is they have built-in durability and built-in efficiency in killing. Right? They have big, strong weapons that have lots of guns and they have a lot of shots, and they're on toughness 12 chassis with 3-up armor saves and invols and 20-something wounds and all that stuff. Right? What they don't have is capabilities. They natively don't have the ability to deep strike or reposition. They don't have the ability to advance and do actions natively. They don't have the ability to go through terrain like Imperial Knights, terrain natively, all these things. So what you have to do with Imperial Knights to make them a winning army is you have to add capabilities. And so what that usually means is things like the builds that I was in when I was winning all these events was I had a Valiant for Overwatch, I had Mysterious Guardian for being able to redeploy. At one point, when they nerfed the Overwatch, I took the Valiant and I made it an Errant, and then I added an Atropus. The Atropus has a bunch of extra abilities. The Errant gives something the ability to advance and do actions. So it's all about like maximizing what you can actually do and like breaking out of the confines of being an army of a bunch of big vehicles. The only buff they gave back to Knights was that they made our rerolls a reroll like oath that we can take better. In my opinion, the reroll oath is the worst oath. There's two. There's a movement oath and a reroll oath. The movement oath gives you more capability, lets you move, lets you reposition, lets you bypass the fact that you can't go through walls. So you need the extra inches to go around them. So the movement oath is just incredible money. I've taken it basically every game, other than the couple of ones that I was going to win anyway. I took the other one, but I've basically taken every game that I've won, and it's +1 advance, +1 charge, +1 movement. That's all it is, right? And it's absolutely amazing. So they gave us like better rerolls. What we really needed was the bondsman ability change back, or they needed to give us a new detachment, or they needed to give us or like overwhelmingly reduce cost on our battle line units, which they did not do. Um, they needed stuff like that, and we just didn't get it. Or give Overwatch back to the Valiant. All those things would have helped, but really all we got was just like a very small damage dealing efficiency buff that really doesn't help at all.
Mm. You kind of
Now,
answered
Chaos Knights, on the other hand,
Ryan's question here, which was like a bondsman still the key, or was there something else?
if we got Bondsman back, I would be playing Imperial Knights this weekend. I'm not saying they would be the best. I would say they are an army that a skilled player who knows how to play Knights can go and do well with if they have the Bondsman ability back. Yeah, in heartbeat. I would absolutely, because suddenly you have the Lancer advancing and charging. Let's go. You have the Valiant being able, or the Errant being able to advance and shoot its melta gun. Amazing. You could get the reduced damage by 1 onto your Crusader again, or not Crusader. Sorry, Paladin. Not Paladin. I was wrong both times. The other one, the one with the Gatling gun. And then there's just like Warden. That's what it is. There's just like so much that it unlocks. If they just gave us the bondsman abilities back, it would be enough for the army to be, I'd say we crest back into the 51% win rate in that area, and we'd be good to go. Right? We wouldn't be like we wouldn't be the most busted thing in the world. We'd be solid B tier, and a good player could do well with them. But as it stands right now, it's just like they took away all the things. Like the army was like fundamentally designed around having the bondsman ability, and they took it away.
Yeah, I feel like the overall nerf was plenty enough to cool their jets.
When you have a knight, yeah, but when you have a knight that's like designed to Overwatch, that also sucks.
Yeah,
like the Valiant is literally designed for. I'm rambling about knights now, but I'm just saying that anyone who says that we got a buff, sure, but that's like we got a pat on the head. We didn't actually get anything meaningful. There have been a couple players who have done well with them, but they're players who are very good and who have been maining knights and know the knights very well. And I think when you have players like Brian Jones, who's one of the best knights players in the world, when you have players like him who are struggling to go X and 1, X and 2 at large events, that should be an indicator that like the faction specialist, because me and Brian were like neck and neck for best knights. If the faction specialist, like the best player at them in the world, is not winning an event every now and then with his chosen army, that's like if McDougal isn't winning with any of the Forces of the Hive Mind ever, they probably need a buff, man. Right?
That is a very good point. So sticking with Chaos Knights, what is Mr. Lancer get any different abilities with the ruinous powers?
Yeah, the Lancer's ability in Chaos, he does. The Lancer's ability in Chaos, instead of advance and charge, is he gives out advance and shoot to war dogs within 6.
The Lancer does, which is interesting because it's not
he doesn't have guns.
He's got a gun, doesn't he? He shoots a little laser out of his spear.
He's got a strength 6, AP 0, sustained. Damage 2, silly little gun. But he tanks shocks for free, which is cool. And he moves real fast, and he has a 4 bimble. He has more wounds than the other big knights, and then he has a decent melee profile. The Rampager's melee profiles are better, like hands down. The Rampager is just better in combat. But the Lancer's still nothing to shake a stick at. So he'll do. I'm going to try him out. I like advance in shooting. I have always liked that mechanic in night builds, especially in like Imperial Knights. Um, I do like advance in shooting, so I think I was attracted to that. So the list is uh, 5 brigands, even at their raised cost. 5 brigands, 3 carnivores, a stalker. The stalker has an upgrade for sticky objectives, and then a
Hmm.
lancer. And the lancer has the upgrade for beginning of the fight phase. I make a choice. I choose a unit with an engagement. That unit makes a battle shock, and then could fail it. And then if it fails it, it unlocks a bunch of things like the feel no pain strat in close combat. The knights can pop. If the thing that's attacking them is battle shock, the 6 of feel no pain becomes a 5 up. Also, on turns 3 and on, if you're battle shocked, you're -1 to hit the knights you're attacking. So on turn
Mm.
3 or later, if you battle shock, if you charge my lancer and battle shock, you're now, and I pop my feel no pain, you're now -1 to hit, hitting into a 4 up invul on a T12 chassis. You cannot use stratagems, and I'm taking a 5 up feel no pain.
Mm.
That's a real hard. That's a lot of
Yeah.
mountain to climb.
Yeah. Oh, jeez. That's
I
like,
mean, that's probably about the best. That's pretty close to like the best defensive profiles you can really get. I mean, the only thing you could add on there was like would be like reducing damage or something.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm pretty stoked. I got the lance painted up.
Oh, nice. Is that
Yeah,
a plastic one or is that a resin?
it is the plastic one.
Oh.
Little hand.
Oh yes. What does he have on? Is that that connects to his shield?
Yeah, the shield's in another room right now. I have the shield basically done. The thing I'm doing now is I made the outstanding mistake of deciding that when I did my Imperial Knights or my Knights in general, I would do non-metallic steel um, trim on all of my Knights.
Ooh, that's a
So the
tall
problem now
order.
is whenever I repaint, yeah, and it's not. I'm not the best at non-metallic metal, but it looks good. But it's very comic book style still, so it's not super hard, but it's still pretty time consuming. And I kick myself because the best non-metallic metal should look like it's metallic, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm able to achieve an effect with grays, with black, just basically with just black and white. That looks like someone dry brushed lead belcher over, a thing.
Okay.
But it's literally if I just dry brushed lead belcher and did some highlighting and stuff, it would look the same. It's just I achieved that look by spending like 3 extra hours with a brush.
Well, that will score you some extra points on some painting rubrics, which we're going to talk about later.
Yeah. So like this guy, let's see if you can see it. So I think I sent you pictures too.
Oh, we got pictures. We got happy progress pictures. Uh-oh.
Yeah.
One of them didn't come through. But
Oh, that's good. So that was I blocked out all the colors. So I blocked out corpse blue on the trim and then yellow and brown. And then this is after a bunch of work done. I've done a bunch of highlighting and glazing on both the brown and the yellow. And then I've that trim that's all non-metallics.
okay.
So
Yeah,
that's all just
that looks like burnished like metal. Yeah.
yeah. It's just a bunch of white and it's literally just AK the Pro Acryl white and Pro Acryl black in bunch, like just put 2 puddles of it on my thing and just mixing and just going back and forth until I get the right looks over corpse blue.
Okay.
And then the shield is really easy. I just did I took white and I ran white lines inside of all of the little brackets, and then I went over it with fluorescent magenta from Vallejo,
Mm-hmm.
and then I went over and highlighted it with a little more white, and then put light where there's like a little capacitor or whatever, and that was it. And I basically did the same thing for the lance.
Looks good.
And then you can see I sketched out my freehand that I'm going to eventually do here on that shield.
On the shield.
It's just like a rough sketch of a sword
yep.
on the little
Yeah.
on the jousting shield up at the top.
Yes, I see it now. Awesome. What do we got
and
going
then so
on
then
here?
this is really cool. Goonhammer. I have an article coming out. Goonhammer wanted me because I've done like a lot of armies in the artist opus style of dry brushing, which is like moist brushing. And so they want, and I write for Goonhammer sometimes. So we talked, and I agreed to do an article, but I hadn't done anything recently that I had a bunch of cool progress pictures for that could be like step by step. Back in the day, me and my wife, for a little like Valentine's Day, like 10 years ago or more, we painted some purple Terminators, and she called them the crudest dudes. And so I decided this Valentine's Day, I redid the crudest dudes on new sculpts with my current level of skill. And so these are all done entirely with dry brushing, no airbrush. And I did the entire model beginning to end in 4.5 hours.
The single model or the whole squad?
The entire unit, 5 Terminators and
wow.
2 characters in 4.5 hours. So
Wow.
that's basically that's my, with a dry brush, that's my tabletop standard. That's like down to the thing.
Okay.
That one wasn't even done yet. I didn't finish off the fingers and stuff. I went back and put a little extra highlights on the thing, but I wrote an article doing it step by step. The librarian was an experiment. I didn't include the librarian in my article, but when I eventually finished him, he's not finished in this picture. When I eventually finished him, he actually looked like his armor was glowing and stuff. So I walked through all the steps of like, here's how you get to the armor look with dry brush. Here's how you get to, and then I talked about doing the non-metallic gold, like the yellow, and then went back and then basically just repeated the steps on the green over the weapon and the other pictures, and the cape on the Terminator captain. I think there's a picture of the Terminator captain.
There he is.
Oh, yeah, there he is. And that was
This
just
is
a quick and dirty. That one wasn't done yet because his gun isn't painted yet. What?
This is the new character from the starter box.
Yeah, it's Terminator captain from the starter box.
Okay.
Yeah. So he wasn't done in this picture yet, but he was close. I hadn't finished the sword. I just kind of sketched the sword. I hadn't actually done it. My power weapons look better than that when I'm done. And then I hadn't painted the gun yet at all. But
I was gonna say there's some barrels over here that look a little undrilled. Oops.
Yeah, I don't drill my barrels. I can't do it. I can't bring myself to do it.
Why not? It's super
but
easy.
I don't know. I don't know.
Hold on.
Maybe
it is so.
I have a
easy.
drill. I have a drill.
Look, you take a knife. All you do is you take a knife and you just use it to like start the hole in the middle, and then you just use the pin.
I know how to do it. I've done it
so
before.
easy.
I know. I just can never bring myself to do it. I should. I'm a lazy fuck. Okay. All right, let's talk about you. What did you do?
I've only painted one model in 2 weeks because I've just been so busy at work. It's just not.
That's all right. I've been painting enough for both of us.
Lilith Hesperax is probably the only model that they've made a new one of that I absolutely hate it and like the older one better. So I went out of my way to get a metal Lilith on eBay, and then
my gosh,
yeah, and then I just switched her arms out and give her some cooler
man, I
weapons.
really like the new Lilith's hair.
Her hair is cool, but man, I just can't get it. I can't get on board with that model. I like the old one too much.
I'm not gonna fault you for it.
No,
dude, I get it.
Yeah, so just swapped her arms out and gave her some blonde hair, and yeah, this is the scheme that my Drukhari are in, this kind of purple with the green blades. So yeah, knocked her out earlier today.
I like group swords a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, so I got to play some practice games of Drukhari with the Sky Splinter Assault, and wow, this is like exactly the way I want to play 10th edition, because it reminds me of how
Really?
like my 9th edition Sisters Army kind of played. Yeah. So yeah, I played against, we got a bunch of guys together, well, which involves me driving like 2 hours, but in one direction for practice day, but whatever.
Sure.
Played against Black Templars and Custodes and Black Templars again with a different list. But man, this Drukhari army, I mean, it really punishes people who deploy poorly, because you will literally be there were the turn one I pulled against the Black Templars player. I drew capture enemy outpost. I'm like, well, that's kind of a waste on turn one. Then I was looking at the board. I was like, actually, I'm pretty sure I can do this and massacre 2 units
Oh my lord.
on the same hand. Well, because this whole detachment just thrives on moving a raider or a venom, but raider's where it's at. The 14 inches, then doing your disembark, and then charging still. So, I mean, you're past their deployment line usually just with the disembark. So 14, plus 3, so 17, and then most Dark Eldar move 7. So I mean, you're up in there, and then obviously you get to charge. So yeah, man, I did some slaughtering. Lilith right here, I was just reading her data sheet completely wrong, and she has anti-infantry. She gets she can turn into a solitaire for a turn for some reason, and then just get like 12 attacks, and she's anti-infantry 2+. It's just unbelievable.
Oh my lord.
With sustained hits 2. So she got I did an epic challenge on a captain, a Terminator captain, and she got like 18 wounds through him. It's just unbelievable. It was awesome. So he was
That's
decapitated.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so those 3 games went very well. The Custodes game. Okay, so with this Drukhari list, especially people who like using transports, you have to be very careful, because with all the little fast moving things, I was playing against the Custodes player. I'm like, oh, I've only played 1 game against them in 10th edition. Tell me about Trajan, and he's just rattling off an endless list of
Yeah, for sure.
rules that Trajan has, and he's in the squad he's in. I'm pretty sure he was in a squad of wardens, so then they can get a 5-up feel no pain once per round, or once per game.
4-up feel no pain.
Oh, 4-up feel no pain. Sorry. And he had him in a land raider, and turn 1, here I come. All those abilities are really good, because he can do -1 damage and make me -1 to hit. And then, they get all their crazy stance rules on top of that, because Trajan lets his unit do everything for the turn. But
Sure.
all those abilities don't matter if he gets destroyed in his own transport and can't disembark. So
Oh no.
Raider flies
How did he
up.
get destroyed in? Oh.
He moved the Land Raider out a little bit. He didn't like all the Dark Lances floating around, so he was a little conservative with it. And then Raider flies up, 10 Incubi jump out, and then and then the Raider charged as well. And the Incubi rolled like an 11 on their charge. So they got like all the way into the back of this Land Raider. And then 2 units of Reaver jet bikes who did not charge, but can just move 20 inches because they just auto advance 6. So now I just have this Land Raider completely surrounded. And then, yeah.
Oh, he just couldn't place models?
Yeah. So that happened. This all happened on turn 1. And then I charged a unit of bikes, and then his just a regular custodian squad. And the cool thing about Incubi is you have to take a battle shock test when you start fighting him, because they have their tormentors ability. So the way this happened was the regular custodian guard squad failed their battle shock test, so no interrupts. And then I'm obviously not worried about the Land Raider fighting me. So then I just fought the. These are with all 3 units of Incubi, mind you. I fought the bikes first, slaughtered them. The guard squad couldn't interrupt, so they got massacred just down to the Blade Champion, and then the Land Raider blew up. So that was like 1,200 points on turn 1. So he just conceded right there.
Yeah, but say, did you guys just immediately re-rack?
He was pretty upset, so no, we did not.
Oh no.
Yeah. So that was a quick game, but that
That's
Drukhari
something.
speed,
I mean,
man.
that's something about 40K, which I think some people learn, unfortunately, in moments that are pretty unfun, which is that 40K has such a high skill ceiling. It's like a there's like a basic, hey, I know how to play this game. But the difference between like knowing all the rules and never having played is the same gulf that is between like the same like it's different as like knowing the rules and playing at like an entry level competitive level. And
Sure.
then that gulf is again between the entry level competitive level and like the top end competitive level. So like it's kind of a sucker punch this game when you like think you're like, I know how to play this game. And then someone does just like shenanigans to you that are like uses of the rules.
Whoa,
Like,
easy.
I mean, no, I mean that's what it is, right? That's how
Yeah,
you can't win. I don't think you can really win like a large event playing the game like without really utilizing how the actual rules say you should interact. For instance, in the charge phase and stuff, all the rules about having to pile into the closest unit and all these different requirements, me abusing them against you, having certain models in places so that when you do specific charges, it stretches you out, it puts you in a negative position, whatever, right? Uh, all of those things are like the must-haves to win at a higher level. And when you get hit by like what you just did is like what you would do that at a tournament, right? Like that's a tournament play,
oh yeah.
right? Right. And he's just like, oh, I thought I got my cool guys in the Land Raider. I thought I was going to get to play this game.
Well, I mean, the pretense of the day was tournament practice day, so, but yeah, I
I
suppose.
don't, yeah, I mean, I don't know who this person is, but I just don't think, I think that means something different to different people.
All right. Uh, yeah. So I'm super pumped on Drukhari, so I got to hobby them up. They are my
Do,
oldest army, so I've got to kind of bring them up to snuff a little bit.
do you
Some.
carry a mop around to wipe up all the tears of custodian players?
Ooh. uh, sure. Yeah. I'll just use Trajan's skull.
Oh, God. Yes, let's do that.
Yeah.
All
Dude,
right.
Scourge just being able to just bounce around with battle focus every turn is just unbelievably good. Ugh. It's just
Oh, yeah, for sure.
oh my gosh, this army is just so amazing. I'm just so thrilled about it because man, I just love fast moving, hard hitting infantry. So it's just amazing. Okay.
Yeah, me too. I am struggling. I actually I'm playing Chaos Knights, but I'm not like really like super excited about them. So like I've been playing Knights for like almost 2 editions now, basically. Like as my primary army is one in one form or another. And I'm like kind of ready to be on something other than Knights. But
Oh. And I take it AdMac are just dead in the water.
uh I think that list I was playing can win games. I mean, it did win games, and I think it's probably the best you can basically do with AdMech. But I don't think. I mean, yeah, I think AdMech is pretty struggling right now. There's some good like heavy infantry build, like light, like tons of infantry builds. But it's just it's a lot of work for a medium return.
Well, like what sort of I mean, I remember you were practicing with it and having really good success. What sort of obstacles were you running into it with it?
Oh, I mean, there's just like a couple things like the so the list can beat any other list. I believe that is true, right? Like a lot of my games were really close. I had some games against great players that were like the list can beat anything, but like you have to try so hard. So like a single mistake in that list loses you the whole game, right? Like one mistake, and you have so many abilities and so many forks in the road of like what you can do that in any given scenario you'll have like four good stratagems you could use, one CP, and like five different possible ways you could go, and picking the wrong one of those four options loses you the game.
Which is
Like
unusual because usually armies that have lots of trash units in it are a little more forgiving because you have so much extra junk.
well, a lot of those units that also have something really heavy that hits hard. Thing about it is they don't have anything that hits hard, right?
Okay.
So, for example, their hardest hitting unit with Taraxi, which do like a million flamers and could put a ton of wounds, reroll all wounds.
Taraxi, not the dudes on treads.
No, those guys suck. Everyone will tell you they're good, but they're not good.
Oh wow!
they're
I got lit up by those guys.
I mean, they're okay in like a vacuum. They're a good shooting unit, but the thing about it is they're not. There are comparable, cheaper shooting units in like every other codex that are better.
Okay.
Right. The thing that Amic do is they have a lot of really efficient, really tricky infantry.
You just said doo doo.
What I said, I didn't say doo doo. What they do, and it's just like I could wax poetic about it. I like the list, and I would play the list again. I just think that I could get better results with a different army with less effort.
Okay.
And at the end of playing 6 rounds, moving 115 models, where you're literally moving every model every turn, like you have to move everything every turn. It's like backbreaking, and it's like the accounting for it, and like keeping like at the end of every day, like it was just all my shit was just in a pile on my moving cart, just like literally just models heaped in a pile.
Wow.
Yeah, it's good though. I do enjoy the list. I might push it more. I think it's a better teams list, so we'll see. But
there you have it, Edmec.
So
not doing too hot.
no, I don't think they are. So I think we're going to talk about rubrics, right?
Yeah. So here's Cascade. I got your rubrics set up on here first, which I will say, out of all the rubrics I've seen, this one is super in depth, and I'm actually a huge fan of it.
So before we look at my rubric, we'll talk about I want to talk about that because I want to talk about why that rubric exists. So for those of you who are pursuing best overall, trophies, whatever, right? There's obviously your play, and obviously you have to not be a jerk, but you also have to score high on hobby. And the thing about it is that hobby being art is entirely subjective. No matter how hard you try to make it objective, there are subjective qualities to the judging of someone else's art, because art is ultimately expression. And it's me looking at your expression and making a value judgment based on my observations of your expression. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So good example is your kid paints something, shows you it's their first thing they've ever painted. It looks like they threw two, blobs of paint on a stick, right? To you, you're like, you did not do very well. To them, it was a Herculean effort, right? To them, it was like a Herculean effort to do that. And they had so much like learning and enjoyment in doing that. And they feel like it ended perfectly the way they wanted to. They're incredibly proud of it. Now, there still has to be a way to identify like who did the best, right? And so there's going to be some amount of subjective stuff, but ultimately you are like putting a number on the value of someone else's personal expression. And there's a lot of things that don't get accounted for. Effort doesn't get accounted for. Execution is usually what is accounted for. Effort doesn't usually get accounted for. Someone's individual disabilities isn't accounted for. For instance, my brother has boxing fractures throughout both of his hands, and he can't keep his hand steady at all. He has like chronic lung stuff from years of smoking, so he'll cough randomly and like have a super hard coughing fit like while he's painting sometimes, right? And he's also got like a really rare cornea disease. That means he's like mostly blind, but he plays 40K, and all of his models are painted.
Oh man,
they are painted like someone with broken hands and who is nearly blind. But they are painted better. What's funny though, they are painted better than I would say like 50% of the people who show up at events.
Wow.
Right? Because he puts in all the effort, he pushes his way through it. He makes sure he puts a base coat on, he makes sure he does the highlight, even if it looks like crap, even if he struggles to do it, even if it's hard for him, he does all the steps. And most rubrics don't account for that really. And so like when you go to an event, you have to first understand that like almost every event does their rubric differently. Like you've obviously, have you been to events where two different events of like, let's say the same size use two very different ways to judge painting?
Yes.
Were you ever unhappily surprised that your score from one was significantly different from another?
Yes.
Right, because there is no standardization. So there are people who grind hobby track and there are people who grind for best overall, and I know that there are people who sometimes if they know they're going to go X and 1 basically no matter what they take because of their skill level, they will sometimes take a different army because they know that it will play differently into the rubric.
Okay.
Right. I am guilty of this. Right. Oh. So, for instance, UKTC does not count or give you any bonus points at all for a display board.
Okay.
They do not care. Okay. FLG display boards are your tiebreakers. Right? Do you have
really?
one? And then also tiebreaker. Yeah, they tend to be your tiebreakers. So it's like, okay, there are some places that don't account for conversions, but then a lot of rubrics require you to have conversions and also want you to have conversions to get max points, want you to have weathering to get max points, all those things. And so let me ask you, do you have an experience where you brought a very objectively well painted model or army to something, and because of elements that don't go with the style in which you did the vision in which you were trying to achieve, you missed points on hobby track?
Yes.
Can you give me an example, Joe?
Well, like you just said, like conversions, like my Harlequin's army and my sister's army. I love those models so much. It's like I don't really want to improve on them too much. Like I'll do like the characters, just to give them some personality. But like I don't want to change like the Star Weavers or anything. Like I like those models a lot. I think they're amazing. And same with just the regular Harlequin troops. Like I can repose them all I want, but I'm not going to get conversion points because I'm not like kit bashing them with something else or using 3D printed bits or anything on them to change their parts. So I mean,
right, for sure. So like one of the examples is if someone shows up with a greater demons army. I've seen a bunch of really amazing greater demon army where every single demon is a massive kit bash, right? And it's painted incredibly well. And you show up with an army that is painted to the same level, has the same amount of detail, and you've done a bunch of freehand, he's done a bunch of freehand. The fact that he has converted his army and you have not converted your army would lose you the rubric, right? Yeah. Would lose you on the rubric points.
Absolutely.
But my thing about it is that every faction is so different. What you're judging at that point mostly on inclusion. Did you include specific techniques? You're not judging as much on execution. What you're saying is if all execution is equal, then the person with more inclusion is going to win. So the person with the more the person with the army that maybe lends itself more to inclusion. I've been to places that really index on freehand, right? And night players love that because there's lots of big panels to do freehand on, right? I Another thing is a lot of paint judges. There are a lot. This is not. I understand judges do their best and TOs do their best, and I'm not throwing shade at them, but there's a lot of people who are paint judges who aren't actually avid hobbyists, who don't actually haven't actually done the techniques they're judging people on, right?
Sure.
And so understanding the level of effort or the little micro execution details and things that go into making something a masterpiece or really good, they that might not get. And then the other thing on it is that, oh man, I just lost it. I was talking about freehand. I was talking about not understanding execution. I had something I was going to say and I lost it. But yeah,
Okay.
so that's like that's
Let's
like
move on.
the thing is just inclusion over execution, not understanding the effort that goes into something, not acknowledging a vision, right? In the military, you tend to be there's a thing that says for inspections, you inspect what is exposed, right? So if you come into my room and you're inspecting my room for a clean room, and I have a bunch of locked cabinets where I've shoved all my belongings in, and the only thing in my room is just a mattress with the sheets made, and everything is put away, then you will only judge me on what is exposed and what is available without you unlocking something. However, if I leave a pair of shoes out and you draw your finger along those shoes and there's dust on your finger, that's a point. And that's a point against dusting. So the idea is you just don't expose whatever. Now, if you flip that around and go the other way, the idea is, in my opinion, that paint rubric should be based on what you expose. I should judge you on what you did, the execution of what you did, right? There should be a minimum level for inclusion, but then from there, what I should really looking at is a feeling of completeness and the quality of your execution, so that if you're a better painter than me, you should win, right?
Sure.
That's my personal opinion, right? You said you looked at some rubrics. Did you observe? Did you like?
Oh,
Do
I
you have
got
any
them.
thoughts?
I got them here. If you want to look at them, or do you
All
want to go
right, we'll
through
do a
your
quick run. No,
We'll go through
we'll
your
go through the other
cascade?
ones first.
Okay.
No, we'll go through the other ones first.
All right. So here's the ones I pulled off FLG's website.
And so these are basically these are a bunch of checkpoints to give you points.
Exactly. Yeah, like out of 100 or so. I'm not sure exactly what it goes up to, but basically you just go down the list. Are you 3 colors plus? Does your army represent exceptional skill or effort? Plus 1 point for 2 layers of highlighting.
I love FLG and they do a great job and they put a lot of effort in, so I'm not throwing shade. But when something says something like exceptional skill or whatever, it's like the thing that they say about pornography, like when you see it.
Sure.
Right? It's like it's using that to judge someone based on, right? You look at something and say, well, that's exceptional skill and that's not. The problem with anybody judging exceptional skill is it's the comparative standard starts with you. Because most people do not consider themselves of exceptional skill. Even masters at something don't usually consider themselves of exceptional skill unless they have a clear thing that shows that they are, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like you and I probably would never call ourselves exceptional hobbyists. And you're a better painter than I am, right?
Thanks.
So there's but the thing is other people might, looking at I've had people say my armies look exceptional, the thing, whatever, so have you. And so that creates a weird thing that the better of a painter you are as a paint judge, the less likely you are to give someone the points for exceptional skill, unless you've been heavily calibrated against personal bias.
Sure. Yeah.
And so
Well,
I think
how would you so like with such an abstract thing like that, how are you going to go about trying to score that?
we'll cover that in the rubric because I think I did my best,
Okay.
but I don't think it's possible to fully get away from that because subjectivity is going to be present.
Mm-hmm.
Um, One thing that's example of the things that I think is that I don't like as much. I like how this is a very easy to use rubric. You can go through it very quickly, and it's very well suited for you got a 500,000 person event, right? What I don't like is like if you did non-metallic metals, that's a point. Doesn't matter if your army or vision or style doesn't include non-metallic metals. It doesn't matter if you're playing Tyranids that have no metals on the
Yeah, you got to
on the
put
whole
some
model.
dead space marine on a base and give him a
Right.
non-metallic
You
sword or
just
something.
even if you can get to whatever the score is without that point, you have to do something else, right? That you're just leaving a point on the table because your either army or vision or style or whatever. If you're painting like your Tau in Gundam in like a Gundam style, like if you're trying to do it like the Gundam cartoons, no matter how good it's painted, it's not going to be non-metallic metals. You know,
Right.
like so I don't know. It's a weird or weathering. If you're if you wanted to paint like a very crisp army to a really high level, then you're losing the point for weathering because you don't want to weather it, right?
Yep.
Uh, if you either don't want to do freehand because you don't see a need to because of your vision, or you can't do freehand because of some other limitation. For instance, freehand is really intensive on eyesight. So people who struggle with eyesight have like I've seen people who are not best vision paint really great. When you get down and have to do those individual things, it's really hard. Also, it's very dependent on hand-eye coordination. Like people with any type of like hand disability, whatever. Airbrush makes it really easy to do some really great paint stuff without having a lot of manual dexterity in your hands, right? But
Sure.
you know, now I learned to do freehand by basically just doing like comic book style art freehand, and
Okay.
it's like the best I can do, right? Um, so I mean that's just like my thing. Green stuff work. Not everything needs. I think just having a bunch of points available for specific items that you may not include is one of my biggest complaints about rubrics.
And well, especially like something on this, like without the artist there, like next to the board, like let's say, you're the judge going through, like how do you know, are you going to look over every single model to see like, oh, is there any green stuff that's been done on anything here? Like, how do you know you're getting scored for all these points if you only have it on
Right.
one or two things?
You'd,
Yeah.
you'd have to have encyclopedic knowledge of like some stuff you can tell, but like let's look. Do we have another rubric we can look at real quick, and then we'll go to
Yes.
mine?
This
Oh,
is
Adepticon.
Yeah, this is gonna be kind of
We
hard to
make
see.
it.
I don't know if I can zoom in. I can just read it off.
Yeah, go ahead.
I can read it off mine here. Stand by. Okay. Um. So this is also just a series of check boxes. Overall, first impression is up to 20 points.
So
Basically,
just a subjective, my first impression of your army when I walk up.
yeah. So this is half your points basically because there's scored out of 45, I guess. So almost half. Army is fully painted, and there has been obviously effort put into detailing the army beyond minimum tournament standard. Give benefit towards this choice unless it has unfinished models. So if you show up with your fully painted army and you put time into it, you get your 20 points. Display base. Okay, so this is for a display board, and this is 5 points. This is up to 5 points, and this is super subjective as well. Basic flock for 1 point, multiple flock, framed edge for 2 points, multiple flock, framed edge, shading, highlighting elements, 4 points, and then the 5th point, if you want to max out on it, is it has to have wow factor. So, and then model basing is also up to 5 points, pretty much with the same standard as the display base. So that's 30 that's 30 points already. And then you get up to 8 points for conversions, up to extreme conversions. The army has extreme conversions, which could be scratch built or sculpted an entire model, large amounts of models with difficult conversions, or the entire army is extremely converted. Man, that seems like a lot of effort just for 8 points, but woo. And then they have the advanced skills. Models have seamless, basically up to 6 points. Models have been shaded seamlessly with blending. And then there is the final 6 points. Army has stellar freehand work and realistic vehicle weathering. So there you
go. So what's your opinion on that rubric compared to the other one?
I think this one is weighted very strangely. Like the scoring is weighted very strangely. Just with the flat 20 points basically for just showing up, which is kind of like the standard, really. I mean, isn't it? Also, granted, this is from 2010. This was just the easiest one I could find. So this might have been changed. Examples. Yeah.
We're not criticizing their current, like we're not trying to provide criticism to like currently how things are being run, but more just talking about how, how some places do their, I said it again. I said do again.
You certainly did. You dog.
Well, some people do their rubrics, right? And so, I don't know. So let's go to Cascade Clash.
I think I got one more. Oh, for Du Bois. That one's
I
also kind of hard.
I want to be fair. Lots of people are doing great jobs with their rubrics, and the fact that this is something that TOs mostly need to put together themselves, and can be kind of hard to do, and then also have to deal with whiny, picky players and stuff like myself. Like it's kind of a thankless job that can kind of be difficult sometimes, and the fact that they're just putting any effort in at all is really cool. And so I just don't want anyone to think I'm throwing any amount of shade at anyone for how they decide to do their thing, because ultimately it's your event. You can do it however you want. I think my problem is, and my biggest issue is just that some events are not very transparent, even if they provide the rubric. Not very transparent about like how it's actually scored, and usually you have no idea how you're doing until till prizes, which is weird because that's totally different than like playing the game, like because you have a running score while you're playing the game.
Yeah, one of the super majors I went to had no rubric, and then like I had no idea how I scored until like 3 days after the tournament, and it was like out of 250 points, and I got like, I want to say like 115, which I was like, what? Like it's just completely abstract. I have no idea what it was being based off of, and yeah, like you just said, behind closed doors, you don't know how these things are being scored. So,
and I think the reason that's important is because you're spending money to go to these events, right? You're spending time and effort to get your models ready. And you could see that, I mean, you could kind of think of it like any other competition, right? You wouldn't expect us to go play in a 40K event and not know how missions are scored, right?
absolutely, yeah.
You
That's
wouldn't
all
have
laid
us
out.
go, right? But it's just not for the same for hobby, and I think that's kind of an issue. So let's look at the Cascade one, and we'll talk about how I'm not saying that this is the way, this is the best way. I'm not saying that my way is the right way. What I am saying is there's a couple of error issues that me and Cass, who's our head paint judge, agreed were kind of, important for us to address. And part of that was trying to make things less subjective, and also trying to make things like more about execution than about oh, that's what I was gonna say earlier. Wow factor. Some places index on wow factor. Just like, did my thing look cool? Like I have a all dinosaur Tau army that's one best painted, even though it's not painted better than some of the armies that were there at the event, because it looks fucking cool, right? It looks really cool. People look at it and their heart goes back to their days as a kid in the '80s watching dinosaur cartoons and eating their Cheerios, and suddenly they're just enamored with it, right? And it's a well painted army, but it's not better than some of the other armies I've competed against and won against, right? So this is our attempt. So this is the painting rubric. The sheet starts with, you're going to fill this out yourself, and the judge will fill it out as well, right? So you can do it at home before you bring your army in, right? You can do it there on the spot, and you're going to go through, and there's a guide below that we'll walk through, and you're just going to fill it out, and then write any notes you want in the margins, right, in the little space that we left, and you can use the back for more if you want. You're going to put your name. You're going to put a description of your army. This is a rose gold Custodes army. This is a monochrome Tyranid army, whatever it is, right? And then you're going to go through and follow the guide below and fill this out yourself. Then you'll put your army out for display with this beside it. The judge will come by, pick up the sheet, add their score, and then take the sheet and record it. They'll put the final number on a spreadsheet that everyone will have access to on Google Drive, so you can go and look what your score is. And then you can go up after the first day of scoring, and you can ask to see your sheet, review it, and then ask for time with the judge. The judge will look at it, and if you want to be rescored, we can have a judge rescore it. And then you and the judge will talk. And the idea is that if the judge's score is higher than yours, than the one you put, if your score is higher than the one the judge put, your score can be adjusted up to, the lowest number would be up to a mark of 1 point, but if it's more than that, the difference is more than that, and halfway between the 2 points. So if you scored me at a 3 and I scored myself at a 5, and you're my judge, then after we talk, if the judge understands that, if there's agreement, we can make compromise, and you could come up to a 4. The reasoning behind that is that the judge's points are the judge's observation will be valid. Now the judge could override and be like, "Hey, I was completely wrong," but that's the general standard, right? And the idea is to give players to feel like players have a voice if they feel like something was completely incorrect or somebody didn't understand what they were doing, their vision wasn't identified, all those things. But we try to make it very clear so that players can see what things were. And the other reason we have players do the scoring is because one thing that does do is if you say you're a 3 and I know what a 3 looks like, and I see that you're a 3 and I go through it, I can pretty quickly believe that you're a 3, right? Now, I'm going to want to see if you're higher, but the likelihood is I'm not going to start lower than that if you accurately scored your things. Now, if you say you're 3 and I go through and I see some things that very obviously not, but it's a way that the players can feel heard. The judges can get a little, know what to look for based on what you write and what you put. They know what to inspect to validate first, were you actually a 3? And if you put yourself as a 2, they're probably not going to expect that you're going to be a 5. But they'll go double check your 2, and they're like, okay, well, actually see this is better. Move up. It's just a way to make everyone feel heard and also expedite the process. Let's go to the next page. Okay, so we fill it out. This is just, hey, you fill it out, go, line by line, all the things I just said. And then the spirit intent. The rubric differs from any that are commonly used. The intent of the rubric is to identify a single army present that demonstrates the highest level of skill and artistic expression. You'll see for each bullet that there are ways to satisfy the condition required, or multiple ways. This is by design. For most of the sections, the first 3 criteria are relatively easy to complete. it'd be expected that if you checked all the boxes, quote unquote, on a traditional rubric, your army would achieve a 3 on each, a 3 on each section, right? So if you're just like a rubric, you're like, hey, I did some non-metallic metals, I did some of this, I did a nice spacing, I did, if you did all the check boxes, you're going to get a 3 on everything. Now it goes beyond that, and we'll see that in the actual rubric score. So let's go down to the rubric score. So we'll go one by one, right? So basing. So this says this measures the quality and appearance of your bases of your army. So number one is the base that has been painted and textured. So minimum, there's crackle paint, there's maybe a little sand, something, right? 2, the base includes environmental elements beyond basic texturing. You've added tufts, rocks, other things, something to make the base have more environmental elements, maybe some little dry leaves, little bit of water effect, whatever, anything, right? Could be very easy to do, could be more complex. The bases have been painted in a way that includes base color, shadow, highlight, etc. Essentially what this means is the base has been painted to the same quality and attention to detail that you would paint a model, right? Okay. So if you look at like a lot of the ways people, like the instructionals tell you to do bases, they'll tell you to put a texture on, put your crackle paint on, to wash it, to paint it, to wash it, to dry brush it, highlight it all the way up, right? That's enough. So doing a basing with multiple environment elements, painting it in a way that is the same quality and level as a model, all that gets you to a 3, right? That's 3 points. Now, for 4 is every base is completed to a consistent standard, including the above 3. So very often you'll see that like your elite infantry and your characters will have better basing, and your infantry, your little 400 infantry models will have simpler basing, right? That represents less investment of time and effort. So this is the thing. This is to get to 4. Every single base has to be a 3, right? If most of your bases are 3, or like a lot of your bases are to 3, you'll still get your 3. Every single model, including your 300 gaunts to that same level, that's a 3. I mean, that's a 4. And then 5 is several smaller characters or one large character model or centerpiece has been elevated by including multiple environmental elements and advanced techniques to create a diorama that tells an interpretable story. I should be able to look at that model on the thing, get an idea of where the model is, maybe what the season is, what the model is doing, right? Like what's going on, like almost something you would submit to like a painting competition, right? It's got a detailed diorama-like base with a bunch of techniques and skill put into it. And it's very obvious that something is going on there. It's not just a model on a nice base.
Sure.
And that gets you a 5, right? So if every single thing is done to the level 3 or across the whole army, and you've done a couple bases or at least one big centerpiece to that high level, that'll get you 5 for your basic.
Okay.
And then modeling is kind of the same thing again, but this is just modeling. So 1 is models are cleanly fitted and assembled. 2 is posing is varied and dynamic across the army. That could be as much as like, if you ever watch Artis Opus, just canting the head to the left, like rather than staring straight on while the gun's pointed over here. Adjusting some posing slightly. Nothing crazy, but the model, it has more of a dynamic appearance. Small detailed elements or conversions are present. So detail elements could be, I've included a whole bunch, like if you've ever seen, when Space Marines come in a thing, they come with a bunch of like additional items that could go on there that would add additional detail, like ammo pouches, grenades, little devices, right?
Yeah,
all those are optional.
Seals, that kind of stuff.
Right, and a lot of those are optional. A lot of people will omit a lot of them to reduce their hobby distance. Right?
I would say I am guilty of that.
Yeah, if you go look at a lot of there's a lot of Space Marines who have way less ammo pouches than they should. Right? And then 4 is the execution of all 3 of the above elements exists within each unit across the army. So what it means is there are no mold lines anywhere in your entire army. There are no little extra bits where you clipped off or whatever. There are no slightly ill fits that have not been gap filled and perfected across the entire army, every single model, top to bottom. And even if you look at some of the best painted armies you've ever seen, you'll sometimes find mold lines and those kind of things, right? So we're talking exceptional attention to detail, as well as you've included little small detail things on everything. And then 5 is the element of modeling, posing, conversions, and or fabricated components clearly convey a story and a sense of life. So it's that you've done all the things, and there's an actual like theme and story that's observable. It's not just these are pink Marines, right? These are green Marines. These are pink Dracari. It's not just that. It's I should be able, by the modeling and expression, I should be able to ascertain details about the army, about the vision you're trying to convey, about the feeling you're trying to communicate, those kind of things. And that's all observable. So 2 different judges should be able to look and be like, oh, this is an army that is, currently sieging a city. This is an army that you just got back from raiding, has a bunch of, slaves in their boats. This is an army that is, everyone's been done, like you can interpret it. I got to go soon, but we'll cut down to the bottom. And I just want to show the difference for painting. So I'm going to skip. So we'll talk about expression in a minute, but paint inclusion and paint execution. This is the big one. We split out. Did you do all the steps? And how well you did the steps. So if you attempted non-metallic metals and attempted all the OSL and everything on every single thing, and you've attempted all, even if it wasn't the best execution, you're going to get good points on paint inclusion. Where you'll struggle then, and the thing that should make the difference, is that if someone is a better painter than you, they are going to score higher in paint execution. Right. And so that's the difference. Paint execution will be a place where a lot of people score less well than I think they're used to scoring.
Okay.
And it'll be the place that makes the difference, because it's not just did I do the thing, it's how well I did the thing. Right. And then expression is, this is like the additional effects, elements, displays. So this is your display board. This is if you include lore. This is if you include little devices, color, lighting, smoke, whatever. But it doesn't have to be a big, wild, flashy base. It could be that you wrote some lore that included on your list. It could be that you have some display pieces there. It could be that you're on a display board. It could be that you've included additional elements to elevate the overall appearance and display of your army, right? And it could be a variety of different things. 2 example of, like, for instance, I know that there's some armies that do make their purity seals on all their stuff out of real paper, right? That's a thing, right? And then the way we're going to handle ties is that if you're tied, we're going, if we have the two people tied for best in the room, we're going to have them each bring us a single model from their army. We're going to judge those 2 models side by side.
Oh, interesting.
Right?
As a single model. If you're the top style arm wrestling competition. But...
no. And that's the thing. So the goal here is to identify the best painted army, not the army that did the most, not the flashiest army, the army that the person spent the most time, effort, honing of skill, and expressed their greatest amount of artistic expression on, regardless if that's an army of giant demons or an army of tiny little space marines, regardless if it's done in a really dirty, gritty style or it's done in the hyper clean, like perfectly line drawn style, whatever it is. That's the point.
Yeah.
All right.
Hey, anyone watching the show, please let us know your thoughts on that, on this paint rubric. We'd love to get some feedback on it as well for future things. So
for sure. And if you come to Cassidy Clash, you will be. This is what you'll be judged on. So it's not perfect. It's not like, I'm not saying it's the best. It's our first iteration, but it's the closest we could get to feel like that you can bring any army that you're proud of. feel like you're being appropriately evaluated, and that the person who wins best painted will be the best painted army in the room.
All right.
And me and Cass aren't playing, so Cass.
There you go.
Cass is judging. None of the Aegis team is for those in the Northwest. None of the Aegis team is playing other than Donald. So you only have to beat one of us a paint.
Donald's army is painted pretty dang good, though.
Actually, great. A couple of the new guys are playing, but yeah, Donald's army has been top 8 at LVO before. So
yeah,
go get him, folks. All right, man. Well, thank you so much for your time. I got to go make dinner. We love y'all.
Okay.
Hopefully this was helpful in your pursuit of hobby. And I'd say, the walking away thoughts is before you go to an event, if you're going to win best overall, make sure you review the rubric. And, sometimes you have to game the rubric a little bit.
Yep. That's a good way to put it. Game the rubric.
Game the rubric. All right. Catch you later. That's our new closing. Game the rubric.
Yeah, I like it. See you, buddy. Have a good night.
Bye.